So what do we learn this week about curses, aka Nick's Fit, in Legacy? And we played a competitive league, because that's pretty much the only way to play Legacy on Magic Online. There's only one league option, and the two-player queues really slow to fire. So we played a competitive league, and overall, we ended up 2-3, which was kind of disappointing, but also not a complete disaster, considering all the variables going into it. So number one, I haven't played Legacy that much lately, so I know there was some stuff that kind of went wrong. Not big stuff, not stuff where you're like, oh my god, what a punt, you didn't click that, or you should have attacked there. But Legacy is such a crazy, hard format where little tiny things like fetching the wrong land means you end up losing the game. And we actually saw an example of that in our first match in Game 2 against Delver. The fact that we were indecisive, basically, is what happened. I was thinking, oh, we're going to do this, and we did something else, and we ended up fetching out a non-basic instead of playing a basic land. And the end result of that was us getting Wasteland, getting blown out, and losing the game 100% because we fetched out the wrong land. I'm pretty sure if we played the basic land there, we would have ended up winning that game, which is so crazy. That is not something that happens in Modern very often at all. Not something that happens in Standard pretty much, period. It's pretty unlikely that you get that punished, like lose the game punished for fetching out a wrong land on turn one. This deck is harder than it looks. It looks like, oh, you just slam stuff, get a huge enchantment, and win. But the fact that there's so many tutor options, it's actually really hard to know what to tutor at the right time. There's a lot of sequencing things, figuring out, do you Green Sun Zenith for a Dryad Arbor on one? Do you Green Sun Zenith for an Explorer on turn two? We also just got a little bit blown out sometimes. Like the one game against Miracles where our opponent shuffled their deck, we had lethal on board, and they just shuffled into the Terminus to win, was pretty sad. Also game 3 against the Opalescence deck where our opponent was just like leyline on turn 1, and we're like, oh my god, there's nothing we can do. Our deck literally doesn't work. Our curses don't work. Our creatures don't work. Nothing in our deck does anything, and we just had very minimal outs. We just had to naturally draw Pernicious Deeds and have enough mana to activate it and do it before we died. So I think that we saw a mixture of probably not the most optimal play, and also just the power of the Legacy format, where every single deck is super powerful. Even the decks that aren't tier or aren't the most well-known decks are still doing something that is just very, very strong and can win at any given time, essentially. So I think we got to see why Legacy is so great. As far as the deck itself, I don't feel super qualified to break down the ins and outs of a Legacy deck like this, especially this deck, which I've mostly played like Miracles, played random control decks, Thopter sword decks. That's kind of more my wheelhouse in Legacy, so that's what I'm more familiar with than random Nick's Fit with Curses deck. But I did feel like there were times when we didn't have enough finishers in the deck. Having 3 Green Sun Zenith, but only having 4 Veteran Explorers and a Dryad Arbor occasionally felt weird. There were definitely some matches where in the late game, we didn't really have anything to fetch with our Green Sun Zenith, and we had a ton of mana, and we were kind of like, oh man, if we just had a Thragtusk in our deck, we would win here so easily, or a Primeval Titan, some random big green thing that we could get with Green Sun Zenith. So maybe there's a possibility that this deck can kind of be a hybrid between the Nick's Fit or Curses deck and also a more typical Nick's Fit deck where you have some creatures in there as well, just big random creatures to search up. So I feel like this deck does really powerful things, and it has a pretty legitimate nut draw. If you can Cabal Therapy on 1, Veteran Explorer Cabal Therapy on 2 into a 3-drop, a Lingering Souls, a Pernicious Deeds or something, and then follow that up with Academy Rector, sack Academy Rector on turn 4, that is going to win a lot of games. There is a lot of sweet things going on in that scenario because you can just get a huge piece. And I was very impressed with the enchantments, especially Cruel Reality. While it is matchup dependent, it can be very game winning. It was very good in some of our matchups. I could imagine that Overwhelming Splendor is super good in certain scenarios, although it wasn't super good in most of our scenarios. And then the other lock of Curse of Death, Soul, and Dubscape is essential in basically any spell type matchup. So we do have the pieces to lock out basically any deck. If we go Dovescape, next we get Cursed Hold, our opponent's kind of locked out of the game, then Cruel Reality just finishes things off. So there are a lot of good things going on. Even there, though, I felt like we were a little lacking in finishers, and I'm not 100% sure if that was me playing poorly. One of the things that happened a few times is we would just naturally draw the enchantment that we wanted to find with Academy Rector. Our Cruel Reality, it happened one time with Cursed Hold that was really brutal, because if we searched it up, we would have the hard lock, but instead we drew it and we couldn't cast it because we already had Dovescape, so it was just like miserable. But that was another thing that happened on occasion, is we'd like need a Cruel Reality, we draw our Cruel Reality, we'd go to hard cast our Cruel Reality, it would get countered. Maybe I should be doing more to play around counters, maybe that's the solution, or waiting till you draw a Cabal Therapy. But after like Cruel Reality gets countered, and then if something goes wrong with Lingering Souls, for example, then all of a sudden we just don't really have a way to win the game. The Veteran Explorer Academy Rector beatdown plan is not all that good. The other thing I didn't especially like about this build of the deck is it does kind of scoop to graveyard hate. We do have Abrupt Decays, which is helpful, although it doesn't hit Leyline. We do have some discard to maybe preemptively get the graveyard hate out of our opponent's hand. Pernicious Deeds can kind of clean up the board, but we did run into times where Leyline of the Void, for example, shuts down Veteran Explorer, shuts down Academy Rector, shuts down Lingering Souls. We got super blown out by double Surgical Extraction. We even tried to play around the Surgical we knew about by getting 2 Academy Rectors and stacking the triggers so we could at least search up 1 enchantment, but double Surgical absolutely blew us out. So there are some interesting things. I don't know if those are flaws with the deck or if that's just how Legacy is, that everyone has these powerful things going on, and sometimes their powerful thing is just better than your powerful thing. So I think the bottom line for me is the deck was really fun. It's super unique. I'm really interested in playing more Nick Fit variants in Legacy, because the Veteran Explorer Cabal Therapy synergy is really sweet. You're doing something very different than the opponent. Definitely missed having Force of Will as just a catch-all, like, oh, our opponent's doing something really busted, we should probably stop that. So I did miss that, so maybe one of the blue variants of Nick Fit that has access to Force of Will could be a good option. But overall, the deck felt pretty competitive. I feel like we would have picked up one more win with tighter Legacy play, fetching out right lands, just little things like that, and maybe one more win with a bit more luck, like our opponent not shuffling into the Terminus, our opponent not having the double Leyline opener in the enchantment deck. So I feel like we were close to going 3-2 at least, or maybe even 4-1, so I can see how this deck can compete and win a league, especially if you really play it a lot, get used to it, know all the interactions inside and out, because you had a lot going on with all the tutoring, all the different options, the naming with Cabal Therapy. There's a lot of skill-intensive, tricky stuff going on in this deck for being just a fairly simplistic-looking Abzan mid-range with big enchantment type deck. There's actually a lot going on, so if you decide to pick it up, because it's a semi-budget friendly option for Legacy, definitely get in your reps with it, learn it inside and out, and then I think you can actually compete. Once the lines are just second nature, you know, okay, I'm tutoring this up first, then this, and in this matchup, I want to fetch out my Dryad Arbor and not my Veteran Explorer. Once you learn all those things, matchup by matchup, I feel like you can actually have success with the deck. So anyway, that's Curses for Legacy, Nick's Fit for Legacy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed our Legacy videos, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.